Darksiders is a 2010 hack-and-slash action-adventure video game originally developed by Visual Games and published by THQ. And the WARMASTERED edition I played for this video was developed by Kaiko and published by THQ Nordic in 2016. This game was suggested to me to play by my Alan Wake playthroughs chat, who were clearly not enjoying that game's gameplay, and they told me to move into this one for a change of pace. However, despite the game originally being for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, the PC version I played was stuck on making me go through the entire thing with keyboard and mouse controls, which made the experience extra challenging. Now, since this was a game I had never played before, just like Sonic Generations, I'm going to do this as a recap of my experience of playing through the game's story campaign and comment some of the gameplay aspects as they become relevant. And depending on how well that format is received, I might go back and give Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance the same treatment instead of leaving it just as a supercut. Darksiders begins with an opening narration telling how heaven and hell have been at each other's throats since the dawn of time, and how the Charred Council rose to tell them to chill out or else. Since the Council had the power and foresight that their war would lead to nowhere, Heaven and Hell agreed to an armistice as neither of them stood a chance against the four horsemen of the apocalypse, who enforced the rule of the Council. While everything was going somewhat well for the balance set up by the Council, a third party entered the conflict as God decided to create the humans, whom the Council saw integral to the truce between Heaven and Hell, bound by the Seven Seals. Until they were to be broken, so would the truce and the end war between the three kingdoms would be kicked off to determine the final balance between all three. After the opening narration, the game then opens in a modern-day human city being hit by meteors that are only the harbingers of war between heaven and hell on Earth. True to his name, the Horseman of War arrives to play his part as the playable character fighting both the demons and angels while the humanity is left to fend for themselves. As War proceeds through the battlefield, he can feel himself getting weaker with his enemies becoming more and more formidable. Eventually, War comes across the battle between the Archangel Abaddon and the demon Straga, with the former losing to the latter when War questions Abaddon for the absence of the other horsemen. The sight of War causes Abaddon to lose his focus in the battle, and he dies at the hands of Straga with his final words being,
"The seventh seal was not broken!"
Abaddon's death is seen as War's doing by Archangel Uriel for having distracted him, with War only claiming to be present as he was called there. At this point of the game, I came to realize I could not switch to the controller and was forced to play with keyboard and mouse, which was something I had to get used to as it made the gameplay more challenging. The fight against Straga came down to throwing cars at him and then slashing his face until Straga grabs War and squishes him to death. Instead of dying, however, War is brought in front of the Charred Council as a scapegoat to blame for the starting of the apocalypse. The Council blames him for siding with the one called Destroyer, yet War claims to have arrived when Heaven and Hell were already at war, as well as echoing Abaddon's last words, which the Council brushes off. So War then offers to be sent on a suicide mission to find the true guilty party of who started the apocalypse, where if he is to die, then so will it be his punishment. The Council agrees and bounds him to the Watcher, who will act as his parole officer to keep him leashed, and is also voiced by Mark Hamill. Game over.
Remember that, or I will really get under your skin.
And with that, War is given back his weapons and sent back to Earth, where 1,000 years has passed since his last visit, and the humanity is now deader than in the Drakkenir series. War's first contact to make is a merchant demon, Vulgrim, to whom War has to bring souls he takes from the enemies he defeats in exchange for items and weapon upgrades. With the tools War buys from Vulgrim, he gets past the gates leading him to demon Samael, whom the Destroyer has imprisoned for not joining him. Releasing Samael, War is told how the Destroyer has 4 chosen demons who guard the tower to his power, and with Samael, War could enter it if he were to bring him the still beating hearts of those chosen. In exchange, Samael would return War's former powers to him, the first being the wings he would need to cover the distance to the Twilight Cathedral of the Bat Queen Tiamat. On his way there, War comes across the Hellguard angel soldiers led by Uriel, who still blames War for Abaddon's demise. War has to steal a ride from them to make his way to the Twilight Cathedral, while being forced to kill angels after him. At the Twilight Cathedral, War has to run around opening all kinds of doors, pick up a throwable weapon, fight cross mini-bosses, get through this annoying gauntlet, and remember to activate one of Vulgrim's shops to upgrade his weapons, before finally facing off against Tiamat. I struggled fighting against her for almost 45 minutes, as she must have been that one boss the developers put most effort into, and playing on keyboard and mouse did not make it easy to master all the needed buttons in throwing, aiming, and throwing again in a small window of time where Tiamat stood still. I swear to God, who did not bother to show up in this game by the way, that I was so close to rage quitting that I don't even know if this boss fight had been tested on keyboard and mouse or just for the controller, as the PC version came out later than the console version. The lack of enemy health bar also made this chore difficult to pass, as I had no idea if I was making any kind of progress once I made it to the second phase of the fight. And according to the chat, other people have suffered fighting Tiamat as well, with her being the final lynch mark to get the players committed into playing the rest of the game. Eventually the cutscene triggered and Tiamat was defeated, with her heart taken from her to be taken to Samael. Walking out of the cathedral, War is approached by Vulgrim, who introduces him to the game's version of fast travel in exchange to being allowed to see the heart pulled out of Tiamat. Using this fast travel shortcut, War makes his way back to Samael, who by gloating War into beating the Watcher unlocks his Chaos form. With that upgrade, War is sent to find Ulthane the Black Hammer before heading to the next Chosen. Finding Ulthane, War is unable to get the blacksmith to believe he is who he says he is, until Uriel and her Hellguard angels show up to blame War for their loss 1,000 years ago, and so Ulthane believes and bonds with War as they flee from them. Or not exactly flee, but run from point A to point B, while competing which one gets to kill more angels.
There you won. Fair and square.
Ulthane promises to have words with War once he has gone to defeat the Griever, another one of the Destroyer's chosen ones living in his backyard. War finds the Griever and manages to shoot at it a couple of times before it retreats deeper into the abandoned train station's ruins, where War finds his next toy that lets him play One Punch Man. Play One Punch Man, not become One Punch Man. The new Power Glove proves its worth in the battle against the Griever, in pushing the train cart at its weak spot, and then doing damage at its weak spot, until it's time to play Molaram again and say Kalima. Before heading back to Samael with the heart, War drops by Ulthane again to ask him some questions, but is instead given a gun. So War returns to Samael to ask him his questions, such as what he knows of Uriel believing War to have killed Abaddon.
The Hellguard worshipped their fallen lord and leader. And Uriel? Some might say her admiration was less than professional.
God won't like that.
She will stop at nothing to punish the one responsible.
I fought the demon who killed Abaddon, and he will be punished.
Straga is the strongest of the Chosen. No doubt you'll face him again. He draws power from the spire and won't stand to be away from it for long. With all I have taught you, you might even survive the reunion.
Whose heart would you have, demon?
The next Chosen War is sent to beheart is the Stygian, king of the sandworms in Ashlands, which is best described as a mix of Dune and Mad Max. In order to traverse it, Samael grants War with the ability to slow down time to cross the sands where the worms traverse, and the game systems full of local demon warriors, until War makes his way to the arena. At the arena, War has to fight waves of enemies in order to reclaim Ruin, his horse left to fend for itself after Stragas took him down. And now War has truly become a horseman once again.
Are you not entertained?
With Ruin once again by his side, War hunts down the sandworm he had to try avoiding as practice with the Stygian, who, unlike that practice boss, has a muzzle that War has to break with his Chaos Eater sword before using the gun Ulthane gave him to shoot at its mouth while riding on Ruin. Ultimately, War jumps into the Stygian's mouth and takes the heart while coming out before returning to Samael.
Silitha's web-infested lair is far across the great chasm in the Ashlands. Ruin has yet to regain much of his strength, but he will make the distance. As for Silitha, just get there, and she'll find you. The Broodmother is a collector of sorts. Most who enter her realm, she feeds to her young, the one she takes an interest in.
Despite Samael's warnings, War rides right into a trap and is taken captive by Silitha's brood. As one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, he is still able to get himself freed from the abandoned part of the town infested by giant spiders and fallen angels, until he finds his next toy, Rico Rodriguez's grappling gun from Just Cause 3. With it, War can swing from waypoint to waypoint and pull the protective carapaces off the spiders to make them vulnerable to his attacks on his way to Silitha, who according to the chat is the best boss of the game. The grappling gun comes in handy against Silitha as she keeps teleporting across the room until War gets her to fall through the floor on a large spike, which makes it easier to take her heart to Samael. With all 4 of the Chosen now defeated, Samael keeps his part of their agreement and grants War the access to the Destroyer's Tower while basking in his returned glory.
You trust him? Who knows where in the 9 hells this portal will take us?
We will meet again.
And here I'm going to give a spoiler warning to those people who, like me, have never played this game before now. Because now we enter that part of the game where true revelations are revealed that would be better experienced if you played the game on your own. Darksiders is something of an underrated game that does not have many mainstream YouTubers having made videos on it, so many may not know what the lore and the story is like how I didn't know it before picking the game up. That is why I'm telling you, if you have gotten interested in this game by anything I have presented in the video, go buy and play it on your own. But if you have played it or don't care about the spoilers and just want to hear my experiences on it, then let's keep going! War is sent into the tower, and there he finds the imprisoned Azrael, the Archangel of Death, who after realizing that War is not there to execute him, begs War to release him and bring down the tower to cut it off from the Well of Souls. War takes this offer initially with skepticism, until Azrael reveals that Straga hides behind the same locks holding him in prison. With the promise of revenge against Straga, War sets off to free Azrael by going all around the tower. In order to release Azrael, War has to redirect these points of power from the tower to Azrael's change, and while working on that, he finds another tool from another video game, the Aperture Science Portal Gun, which he needs to use to climb on these guardians holding the power to release Azrael and stab them on the head.
Aperture Science. We do what we must because we can.
One by one the locks are broken, and when just one is left, Azrael confesses his sins.
An open attack on the Dark Kingdom would violate the treaty. What you're proposing is madness.
Azrael, evil darkens every corner of creation. Heaven waits. The Council ties our hands.
To question them is to question the Creator. Do you believe you know better?
Yes, old friend. I do. When the seals are broken, Hell will send its chosen to declare battle rights. Their leaders will be gathered in one place, and there we will sever the head of the beast. The Hellguard stands ready.
Breaking the seals will trigger the end war. The kingdom of man is not yet strong enough. Earth will be destroyed.
There will be no war, Azrael.
We will crush the Dark Ones before it's even begun.
The pact is a sacred covenant. Even in victory, we will face the wrath of the Council.
They will arrive to find the seals intact. And it will be our word, Heaven's word, against that of the Prince of Lies. Now do you see?
With the confession from the Angel of Death, War has learned who started the apocalypse and sees his mission completed, but the Watcher still holding his leash tells him that he still has to restore the order by finding and slaying the Destroyer. Freeing Azrael from his final lock is a saatanallinen työmaa with this timed puzzle that requires specific use of the crossblade to get the beam to the next light checkpoint, and then, once Azrael is freed, it's time to face off against the first boss of the game who killed War at the beginning.
You are stronger than Straga, remember it. But here, you face Straga with no hope of victory or escape. Straga is the mightiest of the Destroyer's chosen.
And the last. Your master chose poorly.
Those words couldn't be any truther, as Straga has clearly been set up for failure, as he has portal platforms on the floor and on the mace he is wielding, so War can portal himself behind Straga's back and stab him in the neck. And as a final insult, War opens a portal into Straga's mouth and destroys it from the inside. Azrael then appears and transports War to the Garden of Eden, where to get the legitimate entrance to, War has to fight his shadow self to get a shadow mask to see where to step on his way to the Tree of Knowledge. There War learns that after his death at Straga's hand, Abaddon was offered by an unseen female voice, the choice as old as time.
Would you serve in heaven or rule in hell?
Abaddon's choice after failing in his original plan to defeat the forces of hell was to join them, and so he became the Destroyer, whom War has been set to stop by the Council, who are also revealed to have known about Abaddon's conspiracy and let it all happen so they could make War stop him as an indirect order from them. Besides this revelation, War also witnesses visions of the future, where the Hell Guard led by Uriel tries and fails to stop the Destroyer, who can only take damage from the Armageddon Blade, which according to Azrael was destroyed. So then, War sets out to find the pieces of the blade and take them to Yulthane to be reforged. While picking up these pieces, War is approached by Uriel, who challenges him into
Ex Sacramentum.
the Death Oath duel. While War is able to defeat Uriel, he refuses to kill her and instead reveals to her that he has learned the truth about Abaddon being the Destroyer from the Tree of Knowledge.
Abaddon is the Destroyer.
Liar!
To protect you, he kept you from the truth. You pledged to follow your lord into hell, never knowing what awaited you, or what he would become.
Abaddon.
He was betrayed and became the enemy of all creation. I've been to the tree. Its gift was truth, and I share it with you now. Remember the Death Oath. Soon it must be fulfilled.
Uriel leaves to lead that failed attack on the Destroyer that War foresaw, and War goes back to collecting those remaining pieces of the Armageddon Blade. After collecting them all, War takes them to Yulthane, who puts them back together, as Uriel's Hellguard forces are shown bested by the Destroyer, justifying the needed reforging of the Armageddon Blade to slay the final boss. With it in his hand, War rides back to Azrael, who is willing to face the consequences of his aligning with Abaddon once this is all over.
We all must answer for our sins, horsemen. When the hour of my judgment comes, I will embrace it, whatever the light decides.
War confronts the Destroyer, who identified as his former self in third person to the defeated Uriel, And War tells the former Archangel he won't make the same foolish choice he made, leading up to their fight. The fight against the Destroyer is like a dog who tries to play dead whenever War manages to get first hit at it, and then riding around on Ruin to avoid aerial attacks, until War has done enough damage to the Destroyer that the floor can't make it and they fall to the lower floor. There the Destroyer is reverted back into looking like his former self, Abaddon the Fallen Angel, and then this all goes down into a simple old-fashioned sword fighting. In defeat, the last thing Abaddon gets to see is Uriel arrive to witness his execution at War's hands.
Uriel.
Reap what you have sown, betrayer.
With the Destroyer defeated, War picks up the 7th unbroken seal from his remains, but the Watcher refuses to allow him this autonomy, even with Uriel now standing on his side.
Patience, whore. I've got some for you too. I'll take that. If it were to get broken, you might get ideas. Like not going back in your little cage. It's tragic, really. You had freedom in the palm of your hand, and you lost it. But so damn funny. Even you wouldn't laugh at your own funeral.
I'm laughing at yours.
But before War gets to be taken back to the Council, Uriel honors their death oath and as byproduct, destroys the 7th seal, which releases War from his shackles and grants him to do to the Watcher what he wanted to do during his entire parole. The game then ends on a such ambiguous cliffhanger that it has not been given a proper direct sequel over the course of the series, because all the other games are either prequels or parallel stories of what the other horsemen were doing while War was busy with his own mission. And I for myself can't wait for that 5th game in the series that carries over from this point, where the other horsemen join War, as the apocalypse has become official business for all parties involved in it. Darksiders WARMASTERED EDITION was a familiar kind of hack and slash video game similar to God of War and Devil May Cry. Although it being a remaster, the PC version I played did not have the support to playing with the controller, even when it claims to that it should have had that. And for that reason I would suggest that you play the game on consoles. Despite being forced to play with keyboard and mouse, I still enjoyed the gameplay in going through the game outside of some frustrating parts, like the tower when releasing Azrael, and the boss fight against Tiamat, or the lead up to Tiamat at some gauntlets. The story was serviceable in excusing the travel across the post-apocalyptic scenery in being due to the usual heaven versus hell trope where angels, thinking too much of themselves in being better than hell's demons, ended up losing to their unpreparedness. The voice cast was also serviceable, with Liam O'Brien being somewhat stoic as War, Moon Bloodgood as the devoted and vengeful Uriel, Keith Schrabaika as regretful Azrael, Troy Baker as Abaddon the Destroyer, along with Fred Tataskiror voicing the Charred Council. The true show stealer, on the other hand, was Mark Hamill as the Watcher, although I'm not sure if he was just doing a humorless version of his Joker voice there. But with that comparison, and another star was Phil Lamar as Vulgrim, who seemed to be able to do an even better Mark Hamill impression than Troy Baker in Arkham Origins, that I almost thought Hamill was voicing him as well.
I have to kick you. You'd better not bare your teeth. You aren't even a shadow of your former self. You wouldn't last a heartbeat.
As I end up buying all 3 games in a bundle, I am interested to see how well the sequels hold up next to this one, despite not carrying over from the cliffhanger of this game. I'll start the 2nd game where we play as Death after I'm done with Sonic Adventure, which will also be the next recap review after this one. While you wait for them, remember to like this video, comment what you think about the game and the series along with my experiences in going through it, share the video for other people to see, and subscribe if you have not already for following videos I have coming in the future. Also, ding the bell to be aware of when I start doing gameplay streams where you can also chat with me, and may your heart be your guiding key.